Buongiorno a tutti.
Good morning and welcome to this conference called Facing the Mystery of the Innocent's Pain, Not an Explanation but a Presence. Ivan, one of the protagonists of the Karamazov brothers, said, "Listen to me. I've taken children into my house so that everything could be more evident than the tears of humanity that fill our earth, all parts of the earth, and so I won't say a word, but we do have children. So what will I have to do with them? This is a question I cannot answer." Today's conference deals with one of the biggest mysteries of life, pain, and especially the pain of innocent young people. But the biggest pain is the one that is not recognized and acknowledged. These young people, their families can sometimes not be acknowledged. Otherwise, they can be looked at and called by their name. They can look at someone else who acknowledges them and calls them by their name. In the stories we'll listen to, and it's a huge privilege for me to be here, these stories will show this to us. I'd just like to suggest two key points, taking into account two key points. First of all the professionals and mothers that have accepted our invitation have met people during their lives, professionals, friends, relatives, and so they have chosen to become active subjects of this whole story and not just passive subjects. And another important point is unity. Cicely Saunders, the creator of palliative care, said that in order to face such a big issue, a global approach is needed. So there is no longer difference between spiritual, professional, and so on. But a unity within one person is also the unity among people if they work together, no matter their job or their position. Now, today we have with us Professor Sandra Benini, Franca Benini, from the Veneto Regional Center for Pain Therapy and Pediatric Palliative Care in Padua. Dr. Chiara Locatelli from the Neonatology Policlinic Sant'Orsola in Bologna, as well as the founder of the so-called Percorso Giacomo.
E poi ecco, io unirei.
And I'd also like to thank the three mothers and relatives that have chosen to be here with us. We could maybe say, joking, that their men sent them here and forced them to take upon yet another task. Borin, Elena Olivi, and Simona Amore.
Allora, partiamo con.
So let's start with Professor Benini. Professor Benini is a bit like the Ronaldo of palliative care. So maybe not many people know her outside of this professional field, but she brought pediatric palliative care to Italy. Just a couple of words about her. At the beginning, she was a very young anesthetist, and when she went to work, sorry if this was private information, she would take with us her 3 children during the night. They would remain next to her, and she made sure that they would stay there without disturbing her. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much. Thank you, Marco, and all of the organizers for this great opportunity. I'd like to share my thoughts with you. I'd like to discuss an issue that has no boundaries and no prejudices: pain. Unfortunately, pain is not limited to age. So we'll see how difficult it is to look at a child who's suffering, who suffers from an incurable disease, or a child who dies. Medicine has tried to provide us with answers, which are called the pediatric palliative care. It's hard to even accept these terms. Sometimes I'm asked, why don't we change the name of this care, as if changing the name was enough to face the issue. This is a global problem. Just think that ANSET, which is a Bible for all doctors, wrote more than 500 pages about this. And then they chose this title to describe the response to these issues. The word abyss was used. There's an abyss between what we could do and what we actually do. And this abyss widens when our patient is a child. Moreover, the Astana Declaration, which you may know, signed in October 2018, all the ministers of health from all around the world met to decide what to do over the following 40 years for public health care. And one of the main points was palliative care. And let's not forget about the constant need to discuss from a bioethical and spiritual point of view on what Marco defined as one of the most crucial points: the disease and death of a child. I'd like now to tell you a bit more about this. Very often, first of all, doctors study diseases affecting adults, and just after the treatments are carried out on children. Adult palliative care started in 1967. Cicely Saunders, a nurse that then became a doctor, founded in London the first hospice for adults, which helped adults that were about to die. Then the hospice started dealing with other kinds of diseases and other kinds of pathologies, and they decided to take care of the person as a whole, regardless of how much time was left for someone. This is a map of palliative cares all around the world and their level of development. And right now, they are slowly being acknowledged. You can see that even Italy now is adopting a more positive approach for palliative care. But everything changes when there's a child in front of us. Everything changes for a doctor, for a nurse, or a parent that has to face death and incurability. doctors have to tell parents there's no therapy. At this point, everything becomes very confused because children are at the very heart of our society. We always think about children, but sometimes we see them as objects and not as subjects, especially when we deal with difficult issues such as pain, suffering, and incurability. Everything becomes darker and children just disappear. We stop thinking about them as if they could not be affected by these issues. But we perfectly know that in reality, it's not like this. We know all the technological and scientific progress that's been made. This picture shows you how much technology has changed over the last 50 years. This is the current situation. Technology helped us help many people who in the past would have been incurable. Mortality decreased by 100 times over the last century. So what's happening? Many children survive at this point, but unfortunately they have to go through a lot of sufferings and incurability and face incurability. So there's a new category called the complex children. Children with medical complexity. For example, it's hard for them to breathe. They have kidney issues. They have to live connected to a machine. They have cognitive issues. Their heart rate is way too fast, and they could die tomorrow, in a few months, or maybe in a few years. So for us as professionals as well as human beings, it's hard to deal with this issue as well as from an organizational stance. So pediatric palliative care try to deal with issues related to this way of life, because professionals cannot provide children with a treatment, but professionals can provide children with a specific care that can help deal with symptoms, that can help improve the quality of life. The WHO has given some specific answers, and it defines the objective of children pediatric palliative care as the it says that the aim of pediatric palliative care should be to guarantee the highest level of quality of life possible, because a child should always remain a child despite the disease. So as we were saying before, right now pediatric palliative care has been acknowledged, but it was officially acknowledged 20 years after adult palliative care. In London, Helen House was opened in 1982. Two parents that had lost a child decided to build this house to help families that were going through the same thing. This was the first center for pediatric palliative care. Then other houses and centers were opened. And so the main difficulty is making professionals acknowledge this different approach to deal with diseases, especially pediatric diseases. Sometimes professionals answer that this is not a doctor's objective. Only in 2005, scientific literature started officially writing about this new approach at the beginning of the 90s. Palliative was Padua was one of the first centers for pediatric palliative care. The new centers opened, even though they were not officially acknowledged. Nonetheless, they still function. So, in just a few years, or a lot of years, or experience, because it's 35 years anyways, so it depends on your point of view. So, what can I say after these 35 years? First of all, this is an increasing problem. The number of these children increases. And no matter the age, this figure will keep on increases. 1 children out of 10,000 children every year. This is the WHO figures. In the world, 21 million children would need pediatric palliative care. In Italy, we have 30,000 children that would need such care. So we have in Italy 30,000 children and their families that deal with death. And for every suffering child, it is estimated that there are more than 100,000 people, thousands and thousands of people involved. So there are about 9 million Italians that right now have to face this kind of tragic situation, sometimes by themselves. Moreover, the pediatric and oncological palliative care can be adjusted to many other kinds of pathologies. For example, neurological patients or children with breathing problems, muscular problems. So this palliative care actually involves all of the pediatric field. We are confident that palliative care work. They help families rediscover their importance. Palliative care helps us understanding the real value of life and of time, and especially of the quality of life. Families can live at their homes. Less children end up in the ICU or in intensive care. Children can go back to school, so quality of life improves. There are also very effective models on a national and global level. We do have tools that help us adjust our approach to the specific situation of a family. There are services. And sometimes we see that we provide a child or a family with this system and this approach, we can really help them. The second point I'd like to share is that what brings everything together is communication. Communication among professionals, and especially communication with the child and his family. We usually communicate with the family. We are not used to improving the quality of communication. But I'd like to stress that the third player and the most important one is the child. We need to communicate with children, no matter their fragility or their age, because communication is a right. A child can understand what's happening already from 3 years old. We can use tools, time, and many other solutions. Because without communication, our actions are not effective, because without communication we cannot improve the quality of life. If we don't know the thoughts and reactions of the child, then we cannot help his family. So this means that a child understands the importance of his role and the importance of the family's role. Even though sometimes we don't see the child as someone we could speak to. But there's no such thing as an ideal family. Every family has many problems, and a child can understand it. A family with one of these children devotes 9 hours a day to taking care of this child. Families go through incredibly hard times. They have to balance today and uncertainty, the uncertainty of tomorrow. They have to choose between taking care of a child or letting someone else taking care of that child. They have to solve immediate needs and also planning for the future. They need to have hope, but at the same time, they don't have any guarantees or certainties. And at the same time, they know that they have to be ready for a possible separation. So it's important to delve into bioethics as well. Sometimes we face very difficult issues. Our lives are made of choices. Sometimes such choices are more complex because they make us choose between duration and quality. And so we need to start talking to become familiar with words such as limitation, best interest, planning, shared care planning, but it's hard to understand what the best interest is, but we still have to try. There are many philosophical definitions of best interest, but in real life, it becomes much more difficult to understand what philosophy or bioethics are trying to tell us. Now, I've come to this conclusion. It's not always right to follow what science says. It may be the easiest solution, but sometimes it is not the most appropriate solution for a child or his family. So, as a professional and as a human being, I believe that we should do everything that we can, and this calls for a constant dialogue, constant discussions. Some people tell me that in this way I make research less important, but I believe that the most important thing is the person, and research can definitely help us in this. So who should make the choices? The child, the family, professionals. So parents should always take into account the best interest of the child, and they should be obliged to listen to the minor, because even a newborn lets us know what he needs. The child has a role as well. Children need to be informed. Talk to your children, they will surprise you. Also, when a child is a bit older, He has to give us his permission, and we need to have his consensus when he's even older. Society and professionals and parents have a very important role to play, which is sharing these experiences and their stories. Non-profit helped us a lot. Marco said, I brought palliative care to Italy, but without non-profits and families, I wouldn't have done this. Non-profit has to have a very clear objective, very clear aim. Our aim is children and their families. Once I met a parent that designed a room, a suite actually, in a hotel where children and their families can go every year to relax a little. It's a room for children with special need. Moreover, we need to be able to acknowledge our mistakes. Nonetheless, there's a very wide gap between what we could do and what we actually do. A few figures. In Italy, 30,000 children are eligible for palliative care, but less than 5% have access to palliative care. And the situation for other kinds of cares and treatments is even worse. So we cannot deny that there's a problem, but we also have solutions and strategies. So why doesn't our society deal with such issues and try to apply such solutions? We as professionals try to understand this and to find other kinds of solutions, but once again, we believe that medicine can save the world, but actually it cannot. Medicine and healthcare should help us find solutions, especially when we're dealing with a child. Once I was telling a couple of parents that their child was incurable, and the father told me, but can't we have a head transplant? And I said, no, I'm sorry, there's no such thing as a head transplant. That's just in the movies. But then I told my assistant, look, I'm going to check whether I'm right or wrong. I went on a website and searched for head transplant, and I found a lot of articles, studies carried out on animals about possible experimentations on human beings. So yes, medicine tries to do the impossible to help people, and especially children, to release their pain, to ease their pain as much as possible. According to one of our studies, according to one study, 1 child out of 4 doesn't feel pain until 4 years old, but actually our studies show us the exact opposite. So the most effective tool that we have is training. Unfortunately, we're a bit late on this. Figures from last year, a doctor out of 4 graduates from university without having even heard the word palliative care. Some of them just heard about it when it's too late. So we need to make progress. We need to acknowledge this issue, acknowledge that we do have the tools we need. Of course, there's still a lot to do in many fields. We need to open our eyes, because in the future we we'll be able to help new children, we'll face new challenges, but there will also be new doubts, new issues, and so how can we face them? Marco was saying, and I'd like to repeat this, we need to have an open mind, to be professionals, but we also need fantasy and flexibility. Because the most important point is the respect for children and their dignity. We need to help them as much as we can, never forgetting that they do have opinions and thoughts too. Thank you very much.
Bene, penso che tutti abbiamo colto lo.
Okay, so we have grasped the depth of this professional in the experience, the daily experience of her year-long work in this sector. I go back to 2 points. There is the necessity to stay in front of the complexity and to respond to these problems in a systematic way. And at the same time, on the other hand, she also said that 18% are children with oncological pathologies. The other 82% have other pathologies. So to understand that every case is unique and the quality of life that is possible, that is which is located at the center of the relationships of the people involved. Now I will give the floor to Chiara Locatelli. I asked her to give a report on a unique case, on a single case, and show us this point of view, from the point of view of the individual. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your invitation. After this beautiful lesson, I want to tell you about the small reality of Padua, which is different to Bologna. The small reality in Bologna compared to Padua. 10 years ago, I had the opportunity to spend a couple of years at the University of New York in a neonatal intensive therapy unit. My desire was to become the best neonatologist, and I thought that going to such a big center and such an important center would be my chance to learn a lot, to give me a structure to be able to face the most difficult circumstances. This was a very intense and very beautiful experience for me, but what I learned was I learned through Professor Paravicini. You can see her on the left there. She is an Italian doctor who works in the United States. I learned, first of all, to a position in front of the children, to stay in front of the children. We can only serve them, and they are not in our hands. And my questions increased, the complications increased, but it was a huge and extremely enriching experience for me. This position allowed me to see all aspects of reality, to understand what is the real good for each child. As Professor Paravicini said, the objective of a neonatologist is to save the children, but in quite a few cases this is not always possible. And sometimes children's lives end up being very brief. Sometimes they are born in with complex diseases. So Paravicini thought about a new system called comfort care, which would help children to it would higher their quality of life, so that they would not feel pain and that they can be cured and treated, and so that their parents may be accompanied in this journey as well. As you can see in this photo, you can see the structures of in which Paravicini works and her team. All of these figures are needed to accompany these children. When I came back to Italy, my desire was to bring this experience back to the Sant'Orsola hospital in Bologna. I spoke to my colleagues, and I wanted to start this journey with them. At the beginning, nothing happened until a little boy was born called Giacomo. So he was diagnosed with anencephaly. He was recovered in an intensive therapy unit. But if he had... So he was destined to an intensive therapy unit, but his life actually wouldn't have changed much. He wouldn't have benefited from pain treatment, and he would have been far away from his parents. So I called my responsible in the hospital, and I asked if I could take care of this child, if I could look after this child. And he said my responsible gave me complete freedom to look after this little boy, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity. So Giacomo, instead of being sent to intensive therapy, he was sent to the obstetrician's clinic with his mother in a department where healthy children are usually kept. So the idea of having a child with complications with other children who are healthy is not an easy experience, especially for the nurses. Here we can see Giacomo with his mother, the gynecologist, and with his grandmother. And in those 19 hours of life, I was very struck by all the professional figures that surrounded him. And Giacomo was treated for pain, and he was with his family the whole time. From that moment, what happened? The midwives said, the midwives said that the experience was extremely positive because they felt that they were reclaiming back the objective, their original aim of their own vocation as midwives. So another midwife said, I'm not a person of faith, but but if I saw what happened, if what happened to that mother happened to me, I would make the same choice. So accompanying this family really helped me and really struck me. And if you start this experience, I want to be with you in this new journey. So this new way of helping children began to take form. These are the gynecologists that are involved in this treatment. The basis of palliative care is, first of all, competence. And we have to try, therefore, to have an extremely accurate diagnosis, even in a prenatal phase. And every time that the parents contact me, I ask them to give me as much information as possible. And the second thing is the gaze. Thanks to these professionals, I'm able to have this gaze, and I try to imitate this gaze that they have towards the child. As Dr. Piccinini said, we should never be alone, and this is the experience that I have with these colleagues. I never feel alone. This document specifies that incurability starts from the moment of the diagnosis and continues until the rest of the period of the pathology. So diagnosis can actually be, we can actually have a diagnosis before the child is born and therefore be more prepared for when they arrive. The team so many times these cases are very rare, and most pregnancies with complications usually resort to abortions. So we also have a very important team and dialogue with a number of professionals in order to understand how we can treat them in the best possible way. And also we can send parents who live far away from Bologna to these professionals so that they can follow them. So in the last couple of years, the relationship with these professionals has increased. My husband asked me, why do you have to put all these pictures? And I really desired to put these pictures because in the dialogue with these doctors, I had a professional experience of enrichment because of their gaze on the children, and this helped me to understand what their good is, what the good of the children is. What is comfort care exactly? we must know that what is important is not only to accompany them, but that they should have a personalized doctor. There are competencies that we should have in order to face each problem. So the first part of the treatment of comfort care is being welcomed. The second is temperature, so to make sure that they have the correct temperature. For example, kangaroo care, which to warm the baby, or if they're in intensive care in an incubator. And the third thing is nutrition, if the child is in condition, is able to eat, hydration. And then the fourth part of the treatment is treatment of pain. I won't go into the pharmacological side, so I'll go on. After Giacomo, we've had other children, and some of these cases have come about in the last couple of months. This is Arianna, who has a very difficult and complex cardiopathology, trisomy 18. We understood how important the presence of the mother and the father was with these children. They have an ability to communicate and relate with their parents. Arianna lived for 34 days. This is one of the moments in which she was better, one of her better moments. I spoke to the parents and I tried to get them to understand that the situation was very difficult and understand what options there were for treating her. So she was also very weak, as well as having this disease. That afternoon, the parents sent me this message: "Dear Chiara, we want you to know don't worry about us, and we're very grateful for everything that has been given to us. We are facing day by day, and we are open to what's going to happen to our child, and we will accompany her until the moment in which she will begin her eternal life. And we have lived a piece of paradise in the last couple of days with you. It is very difficult to speak about eternity with a child with a condition of this kind, but these parents used exactly those words. Again, this is another child, Pietro. His kidneys were very ill. They were not functioning well. And his lungs were also not fully developed. So we didn't know how the birth was going to go. It was very important to meet with these parents multiple times. And we tried to assess various centers to try and find out where he could get the best care. Pietro was born. He was crying a lot, but his lungs weren't strong enough, so he lived for about 72 minutes. A while ago, when I spoke to Professor Benini about this, I said, How can you face this? By being sustained by the people that are next to you. And on the benefits, it's difficult to talk about the benefits, but I'll go back to the title of this meeting. The I can be reborn only in an encounter, a human encounter, because it opens to a desire of happiness, justice, and truth that without the encounter would never have come about. So the experience with the families is exactly this experience, desiring the same beauty and happiness that they desire. Lucio and Chiara are children of the Grattamare couple. They were two twins, and Chiara also had an anencephaly. So they appealed to our center. They turned to our center. It was a funny situation. So when they came to us, they were on their way back to Grattamare, and her waters broke on the way home. And they came back to Bologna, to the hospital in Bologna, precisely because they wanted to be accompanied by us during the birth. So here we can see the children with the mother after the birth. This journey accompanies everyone. This family that contacted us, they did not choose any kind of a particular, they didn't choose this treatment for a religious reason. In May, Pope Francis talked about pre-faith situations, and in situations like these, we are together, notwithstanding our faiths or religions. Here you can see Giacomo's mother on the right, who often comes back to our clinic to give care to the mothers and give support. And a gynecologist that helped her since she was sleeping in a dormitory. This gynecologist offered to pay a hotel for a month for her so that she could have a bit of dignity. She could live this month with dignity. So we have, the basis is based on competence, and this allows also the union of all the other factors. So this is a beautiful story of Gabriella. She is a little girl who had growth problems, and the situation was quite critical, and they didn't know that if she would survive the birth, and thankfully she did, and she was able to breathe through tubes. So we're still accompanying her now. I will finish with these letters that show the experiences of the parents. We have the privilege, the unique privilege to get to know him, to embrace him, to cuddle him for the time of his life, during the time that is given to him to live. The journey that Giacomo's journey was like the light at the end of the tunnel. and the hope that also Chiara could also embrace her mother and be embraced by her family, etc., was the best experience we could have hoped for. Thank you very much. Obviously, I'm not a good moderator because I'm not able to keep them in the time limits, but we will try to forgive this mishap. So, Chiara has told us how how one lives through this experience, and the child who is at the center is at the center of a network of relationships. Now we will see and also watch 3 friends who have very different situations, but each one stays in front of this situation with a gaze, the gaze that we have spoken about. The first is Elena Borin from Padua, educator and music teacher. She's a very particular story which she will talk to us about. She is a foster sister of a Mexican. She is a sister of Matteo and Messicana, foster sister of Matteo and Messicana. Elena, I give you the floor.
Buongiorno a tutti.
Good morning, and thank you for being here. This is very exciting for me. Thank you for enabling me to share my experience. I'd like to start with something I heard on the radio while I was writing my speech. Love is pain. This is what they sing in the songs, or what poets write, what philosophers talk about. But this is incredibly hard to think of and to understand. The greatness of love involves also innocent pain, as well as the great mystery of death. So, like Mother Teresa writes, maybe it's true that to really love you need to suffer. So, maybe it's true that pain belongs to love, maybe it represents love. And so we need to embrace pain and accept it as part of our lives. The story I'd like to share with you today is not a story of pain, but a story of love that I've received and that I still receive every day, even though it is a love related to innocent pain and disease. I'm Elena, I'm 26, and my family has been a foster care family for many years. We've welcomed many children and teenagers with problematic families. We've shared our lives with many of them, but there are a few that have really struck us. In 2005, maybe not really aware of what would happen, we decided to take in Matteo, suffering from the so-called Undine syndrome. So he has to breathe voluntarily, and so he needs automatic support and constant care needs to be provided. It's a very rare genetic condition with serious consequences which cannot always be explained. So much so that a child with Undina's family and taking care of him was really strange for us. My two brothers and I met Matteo in the pediatric unit of the Padua hospital, and we realized that our life was about to change. Matteo was just 6 months. He had never gone out of the hospital because his natural parent didn't think they could take him with them because of his disease. And so he was a great creature for us, even though it was hard to take care of him. We had a lot of doctors and nurses helping us at our house, all of them very worried. Once I looked at my older brother and said, "Are we sure we can do this?" I said this to myself very often, even during the following months. It was hard taking care of Matteo. It was a constant battle between life and death, and we knew that every moment could be the last for him. So it was hard for me to accept this. So I couldn't understand why such a small child had to suffer that much. I looked at him, at his will to live and fight, and I couldn't find any explanation for that pain. So at 12, I had just one possible strategy to adopt. I decided to be there and to stay there as best as I could, trying to ease Matteo's pain so that the time we spent together could have positive consequences for both of us. So together, we remained together for 18 months. Who could have thought that? So we believed in Matteo, even when everything seemed dark and hopeless. We fought together to conquer everything, from his first steps to his first word. And we received many gifts, sometimes even too many. Sometimes we would worry when Matteo wouldn't talk like other children, so we decided to take him to a speech therapist, but then he started talking too much. So Matteo became our brother, and we became aware of one thing. What Matteo had become was possible because of those who had surrounded us. Our relatives and friends were scared of Matteo's pathology, and so they told us, "Why are you doing this?" But who really supported us was another kind of family, the hospice. They really became a point of reference for our whole family. We shared a lot with them, and we are very grateful for their constant help and support, for their friendship. Hospice is where life has a value, and this is stressed constantly. Family is sacred there, and a family's story is respected. At the hospice, a word, a hug are never spared. Matteo gave us the strength to say yes one more time. We took in a 1-year-old girl with a spinal atrophy, a degenerative disease. She's called Messicana. She's so wonderful. Her eyes speak to us, and she smiles constantly. She's very fragile because of her pathology. Nothing's easy for her. Nonetheless, we developed a very strong bond, and she became our princess. It's hard for us to accept her condition, seeing her giving up very normal things such as eating, moving around, or just spending time at the park without contracting any infections. This is just heartbreaking. It's so hard for us to see the helicopter coming at our house, saying goodbye to her and praying that we can see her again. But this is the law of love. To really love, you need to suffer. Our little Messicana and our Matteo have shown this to us many times. Just like with Matteo, we tried to make the most of the time we spent with Messicana. We give her everything. We give her all of the love and attention that we can. And we think that when her time comes, we have loved her as much as we could. The time spent with them is a gift for us. I cannot express how much love these children have given us, a huge reward that sometimes we don't even deserve, but which is an invaluable gift for our lives. The experience with Matteo and Messicana have enriched me. I understood the value of life, and also I gave a face to pain and suffering. Matteo and Messicana have shown me how little we need to be happy. They showed me that it's right to be afraid of losing the ones you love, and it wouldn't be right to feel any other way. They taught me to be a constant present, unlike what our society teaches us today. They taught me how to appreciate every single moment, and that every moment spent with love is sacred. Last December, just before Christmas, our family was asked to take in another child, 1 month old, with a very serious pathology, and we said yes one more time. We couldn't let that child spend Christmas without a family. That was the most beautiful Christmas gift I could have ever received. Her sister has another serious pathology, and now I am a foster mother. We don't know what's going to happen, but we know that these children are a gift of love. So what I try to be is a presence of love. Now I have a few pictures of Matteo and Messicana, and I hope you like them. Thank you very much. Love life. Love it even if it's not as you hoped it would be. Love it every time you're born and every time you're about to die. Don't ever love without love. Don't ever live without life. Thank you for sharing.
Grazie.
Thank you very much. Elena Olivi from Castel Bolognese, biotechnologist in Bologna. She works as a researcher, married to Pietro, 6 years of marriage, and she's the mother of Ester and Davide.
Sono appunto Elena e ho pensato così a queste riflessioni assieme a mio marito Pietro e sono felice di essere qui a condividere con voi la nostra storia e intanto sono grata tantissimo di quello che ho sentito fino adesso, mi sono emozionata molto. Io e Pietro ci siamo sposati nel 2013 e i primissimi anni di matrimonio abbiamo avuto proprio a cuore una frase che avevamo sentito a un incontro, cioè di custodire il nostro matrimonio come fosse il nostro primo figlio. E poi dopo un paio di anni ho scoperto di essere in attesa proprio a Natale del 2015. Però il giorno della prima ecografia, al 3° mese, la nostra gioia si è scontrata con una diagnosi difficile da accettare: severa malformazione cerebrale. Ci siamo sentiti improvvisamente cadere in un baratro. Un dolore grandissimo, perché era la prima volta che sentivamo battere il cuoricino del nostro figlio e pochissimi minuti dopo sapere che era così malato. Il giorno seguente, ancora sconvolti, siamo andati a sentire un parere da un secondo ginecologo. Confermata la diagnosi, su nostra richiesta ci ha detto che sembrava femmina, però poco importava, perché si trattava di una gravidanza persa. Quelle parole ci ferirono tantissimo. E per noi era ben più di questo, era nostra figlia che già da più di 2 mesi viveva dentro di me. Quindi il nostro cuore era ferito, colmo di dolore, ma soprattutto pieno di amore per quel cuoricino che proprio da poco avevamo sentito battere e che ci stava dicendo: sono qui. E proprio per il fatto che fosse così malata sentivamo ancora di più il desiderio proprio di starle ancora più vicino e di amarla ancora di più proprio per questo. E il titolo di questo incontro spiega bene proprio questo momento. Davanti a questo dolore inaspettato e innocente non ci siamo fermati a chiederci perché c'era già quella presenza proprio di nostra figlia che si è fatta così sentire, così in modo grande, che non si poteva più mettere in ombra quell'amore che già mi legava a Pietro e che proprio dal nostro rapporto si dilatava verso questa piccola. Non sapevamo però come avremmo potuto avere la forza di fare tutto questo percorso. Ci sono stati 2 giorni particolarmente duri, che sarebbero proprio serviti a comprendere la problematica della piccola che abbiamo chiamato Ester. Il primo, il giorno di una consulenza genetica per cercare di capire meglio il quadro, quando il medico, pur rispettoso della nostra scelta, ci disse che probabilmente ci sarebbero state disabilità fisiche e cognitive gravissime. Io mi ricordo proprio che quel giorno ebbi un dolore e una paura proprio perché avevo paura di quello che sarebbe successo ogni giorno a partire da quel momento. E il secondo momento difficile è stato invece il giorno in cui abbiamo fatto una risonanza magnetica proprio per comprendere meglio la diagnosi. E la diagnosi definitiva appunto è arrivata quel giorno ed era quella di anencefalia e quindi di incompatibilità con la vita extrauterina. Da quel giorno in poi, appesantita da questa sentenza, sentivo già un po' la nostalgia del tempo che stava passando, perché proprio sapevo che il giorno in cui, se Ester fosse arrivata a termine, il giorno in cui sarebbe nata, probabilmente dopo pochissimo tempo ci avrebbe lasciati. Il nostro rapporto di coppia il nostro essere presenti l'uno all'altra, il nostro aprirci per scambiarci paure e timori, ma anche emozioni e speranze, ci ha aiutato tantissimo e ci ha aiutato anche a condividere pian piano con alcuni amici, alcune persone che avevamo a fianco e che davvero con discrezione e molto affetto ci hanno fatto compagnia. E Ester è stata con noi altri quasi 6 mesi durante la gravidanza e ogni giorno con lei è stato un giorno di gioia e di amore. Un aspetto fondamentale in tutto questo vissuto è stata proprio la presa in carico per il parto. Una volta saputo infatti la diagnosi definitiva di Ester, alcuni specialisti ci avevano proprio detto: ma un posto vale l'altro. Perché come a dire che l'esito tanto era negativo, visto che la piccola sarebbe morta, e non aveva poi tanta importanza al come ci si sarebbe arrivati. E invece noi eravamo proprio convinti che ancora di più valesse la pena cercare un luogo che fosse pronto ad accoglierci nel miglior modo possibile, per noi e per la piccola. E ben prima di essere incinta avevo sentito parlare della neonatologa Parravicini e dell'esperienza della Comfort Care a New York. E addirittura mi ricordavo proprio di aver letto che lavorava a Bologna una neonatologa, appunto Chiara, e che aveva affiancato per alcuni anni Elvira a New York, cercando di portare un po' la sua esperienza di accompagnamento anche nel suo reparto di Bologna. Cercando su internet, addirittura avevamo letto la storia di Giacomo, delle 19 ore di Giacomo, e quindi quando abbiamo letto questa storia abbiamo proprio pensato: ok, cerchiamo Chiara, cerchiamo il ginecologo Patrizio Calderoni. E ricordo benissimo che il primo giorno in cui siamo andati a incontrarli, io e mio marito, una delle prime cose che gli ho chiesto è proprio se davvero ne fosse valsa la pena di partorire lì. Cioè, perché ne sarebbe valsa la pena? Anche se in realtà noi ne eravamo straconvinti, però volevo proprio sentire anche da loro le ragioni di questo. E senza indugiare ci risposero che sì, ne sarebbe valsa la pena. Con un personale preparato ad una simile accoglienza si sarebbero potute evitare ansie e preoccupazioni inutili, sia di noi genitori ma anche del personale, permettendoci di non perdere tempo perché ogni minuto sarebbe stato prezioso. Il giorno della nascita io e Pietro avremmo ben capito e vissuto il significato di queste parole e da subito ci siamo sentiti coinvolti non come pazienti e neanche come semplici fruitori di un servizio sanitario, come i poveri genitori che hanno bisogno, ma proprio come parte di un'equipe, di una vera e propria squadra, condividendo le nostre paure, i nostri desideri più profondi anche per il giorno della nascita. E ciò che stava a cuore a tutti, a noi genitori come a tutto il personale, era quello di accogliere nel mondo una nuova vita che da tanti mesi si preparava a vedere la luce e custodirla perché ogni minuto fosse vissuto in pienezza nel miglior modo possibile e che Ester potesse vivere amata e coccolata in braccio ai suoi genitori. Con l'avvicinarsi del giorno del parto, che era stato programmato con taglio cesareo per dare più chance a Ester di nascere viva e di conoscerci, la strada si faceva sempre più faticosa, ma non buia. A illuminarla, appunto, una meravigliosa equipe che con professionalità e grande umanità ci ha sempre accompagnato, standoci vicino soprattutto nei giorni di ricovero in ospedale, dove si è compiuta la vita terrena della nostra piccola. Concretamente ci hanno testimoniato che quando non c'è più alcuna possibilità di guarigione è lì che si apre forse il compito proprio del medico, si espande, cioè inizia il momento della cura, del prendersi cura, dell'accompagnare. Grazie al loro impegno, i protocolli rigidi e generalizzati dell'ospedale sono stati riadattati alle nostre esigenze. E quindi Pietro mi è stato accanto in sala operatoria e ha potuto prendere subito in braccio Ester. E poi Ester mi è stata data in braccio e siamo andati su insieme in reparto accanto alle altre mamme con i loro bimbi. In una stanza però tutta per noi, dove anche i parenti sono potuti venire liberamente a incontrare Ester. Anche per tutto questo, io e Pietro abbiamo potuto vivere in uno stato, direi, di grazia, dove non esistevano né preoccupazione, né domande, né perché. C'era solo la nostra totale e piena presenza, il nostro calore e il nostro amore, la nostra gioia di aver incontrato e conosciuto nostra figlia. Ester è venuta alla luce il 18 agosto 2016 ed è rimasta tra le nostre braccia per quasi un'ora. Ogni istante della sua vita l'ha vissuto al massimo delle sue possibilità, accanto a noi genitori, ai nonni e agli zii. In ogni secondo ha compiuto il suo destino, con dignità e valore, trasmettendoci una pace e una bellezza che non dimenticheremo mai. E il dolore per la sua mancanza, che porteremo dentro a lungo, non sarà mai disgiunto da un senso di commozione e profonda gratitudine per essere stati scelti come suoi genitori. A marzo di quest'anno è nato Davide, che adesso ha 5 mesi, e nonostante che la gravidanza sia trascorsa senza problemi, sin da subito abbiamo sentito il desiderio di rivedere quegli stessi volti e ritrovare proprio quegli sguardi carichi di umanità e di affetto, per i quali non troveremo mai abbastanza parole per ringraziarli infinitamente. Grazie.
Una parola però capito, senti.
Solo una cosa. Il video che è partito durante la testimonianza di Elena e ogni...
Can you hear me? Okay. To help the parents and to help face nostalgia and to help parents during the morning, we create memories, for example, videos and clips. For example, we made a video starting with Ester's birth. We gave it to Elena and Pietro. Elena and Pietro remade it and included all of the clips and pictures from the pregnancy that I hadn't seen to show that it all had started before. They had gone on holidays during the pregnancy to let Ester enjoy the beauty of life too. They also received a letter from Pope Francis. They actually sent a letter to Pope Francis telling him about their story. The Pope replied and congratulated them on their story and on the Giacomo treatment. Thank you. Simona Amore, which means love, so that's great. She's from Bergamo, mother of Filippo and Arianna. Filippo is 6, Arianna is 4, married to Marco for 17 years. You have the floor. Good morning. I'm really excited to be here. I was asked to talk about us, so I decided to start from the beginning. Hi, I'm Filippo. I'm happy to tell you that last night my sister Arianna was born. She's blonde and weighs about 2 kilos. She's great, but she's so small, so she has to be in an incubator. My mom is fine. It was March of 2015. This was our message for our relatives to tell them our child was born. She was a premature baby, but perfectly healthy. She was so beautiful. We were incredibly happy. Filippo, our first son, would turn 2 in a few days. His parents had just gifted him a little sister so that they could grow together. Unfortunately, Arianna was hiding a sad secret that we discovered in a few months. She stopped drinking milk, stopped growing, so she went through several checks. That was just the beginning of an incredibly hard time, a dark time, a time of checks and exams, and fear was destroying us. As she was growing, Arianna was struggling more and more. Unlike other children, she couldn't sit, she couldn't use her arms, she couldn't hear noises very well. So she wasn't growing. So on the 1st of April 2016, when she was 1 year old, we got a diagnosis, Angelman syndrome. This was a knife in our heart, and our faith quivered. This is a very rare genetic disease characterized by a growth retardation and neurological damage. It strikes a child every 12,000, and such children are not able to talk. They have motor and cognitive problems. They suffer from epilepsy, sleep issues, and many other issues. They need constant care every day, and they will need it for their whole life. So it was a very dark year for us. I remember I held our baby doll. I would look at her and I couldn't believe it. I kept wondering what her future would be like, what kind of woman she would become. I was so afraid, and I was constantly angry with everyone, even with God, and I would cry. My husband encouraged me to fight back. He had found a new balance, but for me it was harder because I felt like I was carrying this burden by myself. We had to face daily issues, therapies, bureaucratic documents to fill in, and at the same time Filippo needed attention, and also we had to tell about Arianna to all of our relatives and friends, and I just couldn't do it. So it took time for everything to find its right place. I have to thank my husband and also my relatives, my sister and my parents, for being an example of unity and faith for me, an example of dedication to family. It's thanks to them that I started seeing the light again. Together we started facing everything. First of all, we looked for information on the disease, and we decided to meet other parents with children affected by the same syndrome. We attended conferences, training courses on alternative communication, including communication strategies that we're now teaching to Arianna because she cannot talk. We asked ourselves a lot of questions, and together we found answers, and we realized we could help Arianna, respecting her limits and her problems. Now Arianna is 4. She doesn't walk. She moves jumping on her butt, so she's a very happy child. She gives us sweet smiles every day, infinite love, pure love. Huge hugs that warm our heart and are so rewarding after all the pain. So our daily life has changed. Our days depend on Arianna's needs, on the therapy, on the checks. We have to travel a lot, but we have changed too. Our priorities have shifted. Our goal is to give our children a life full of love. So this is why we're constantly looking for something beautiful to do together, for special moments, and every single moment has become special now. Arianna has taught us that sometimes we need patience. We need to be able to stop and listen to her, because even though she doesn't speak and she doesn't talk, she has a lot to say, more than words could tell. And so slowly we started opening up to our relatives, our friends, and we found new unexpected friendships. Some of our friends are here with us today. We found new ways to grow. Thanks to Arianna, we met so many good people who are willing to give us their time. Thank you, Tommaso, and all of our friends from La Mongolfiera. They help us, support us. They are people who are willing to listen to us. They share our fears with us without any filters and support us in our choices, which are definitely not simple. At the same time, they embrace Arianna's disability and all of its consequences without any problem, always looking for the light. We're now trying to surround Arianna with a community of people who know her disease, but who also love her for who she is. Arianna is affected by Angelman syndrome, but she is not Angelman syndrome. She's so much more than that. She's, first of all, a child. She has a dignity. She deserves respect towards her being special, more fragile than others, or even just purer than others. There are difficult days and we cry and we are afraid of the future, but we perfectly realize who Arianna is and who she cannot be. We know that she'll never talk. We hope she'll start walking somehow. We are perfectly aware that her problems will increase with time. Her disability will be more evident, but we love her for who she is. It's hard for us to even think of her as another person without any of these problems. Now, a possible treatment is being studied, and maybe someone will find a cure. But even without a cure, we will still love her for who she is, because her life is precious. And we want to give our children the happiest life that we can give them. I started saying that when Arianna was born, we were very happy. Now, step by step, together as a couple, as a family, as a community of friends, we are happy again. In a different way, maybe even happier than we were before. Perfectly aware that of the gifts of Arianna's disease, because this helps us and all of our friends be better people. I'd like to quote the words of another mother with a child affected by Angelman syndrome. You without words forced me to listen to your heart. You gave me patience because beautiful things come to ease our eternal pain. You came here to make me a better person.
Bene, mi toccano 3 telegrafiche
Okay, so I have 3 notices in order to conclude. These stories that we've had the opportunity to hear are fascinating and they correspond to our desire. My response is I would like to continue to listen to these women because this was an experience that corresponded to me. The other notice is that these testimonies have a public dignity as a hypothesis for beauty in our society. It's like a judgment also in front of which our society can measure itself. So the hypothesis and the norms in front of the suffering person will have as a thorn in their side these friends that will continue to say with their lives, don't you see that a great difficulty can also be lived in this way? And the third notice which is something that the meeting proposes to us every time. It's a thanks to the people of the meeting, because a meeting like this would not be possible otherwise. The meeting is an event, a totally unique event. For 40 years, it is the surprising result of the contribution of many volunteers, donators, speakers, curators of exhibitions, and the visitors that visit it every year. It is because of this that for 40 years all of this has been possible, and they are completely free, all the sectors of the meeting, and can be witnessed from the comfort of everyone's home on the internet. This is why the donations of the meeting are so important. What the amount is not important, but the simple gesture of responsibility for the building of such a unique place is what is important. So that it can continue to happen. So you can see in the meeting small desks, red desks with Dona Ora written on them, and the volunteers are wearing red t-shirts, and you can give your donation there. Thank you. I thank you all individually. Thank you for everything.